Well, hello, you good people.
Hey, guys.
My gosh, friends, lovers. Thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. As you may have seen, we finally added that, look at that, to the title card. Except, producer, Thursday show, Ayn Rand Center UK, just sent us art, which we may use to replace that. So this one only gets one shot. Well, that's cool. Things only get better and better. Hi there, friends, lovers. Thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. And today is Sunday, August 21st, 2022. August 21st. The 233rd day of the year. You have 132 days left to make this 2022 your best year yet. There's 126 days until Christmas. 70. I know you care about 71 days until Halloween.
Yay!
I got to stop right there. What are we drinking?
Oh, I'm, just water, but I've got this beautiful...
Look at this.
Great pumpkin Charlie Brown mug or glass or something. Here you got Linus, who is
beautiful.
He's the true believer.
So
here's the Baron in World War I.
The Red Baron.
And,
Actually,
and by
that's
the way...
the World War I fighting ace. He's fighting the Red Baron.
That's right. You're right.
Yes. Very cool, very cool.
Yes, have to have that Snoopy history completely accurate.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So we did actually pick out our Halloween costumes. What we know we're going to do.
Do we?
Yes.
Well, Amy has figured out what our Halloween costumes are.
I'm going to be a psychic, and Robert's going to be a lottery winner.
Stands to reason, doesn't it? That'll be fun.
Well, I'll be a gypsy. I'll have a crystal ball and everything like that. Robert will have like a big, big check,
check
hanging around your neck with some balloons.
I just have wads of fake money.
With real money just sticking out of you.
And like baby powder under my nose.
Oh, no.
We'll figure this out. So yes, 71 days until Halloween, 33 days until autumn. So basically a month. If you have not made of your summer everything you think you should have made of your summer, get on the horse, ride away. Yes. No, that's the wrong metaphor. But make that thing happen. Summer has been good around here, and yes, Amy has made her first trip, as promised last week, to the Halloween stores. 13 days until Robert's 6th annual rock and roll picnic. Now, if any of you don't know what that is, the annual rock and roll picnic is a picnic held annually in which we rock and roll, but you're the ones who rock and roll. It's an open jam. Musicians are welcome to come. If you're not a musician, but are willing to sing, sing along with the musicians.
If you're not a singer or a musician, you can dance.
Yes, and if you're none of the above, you can karaoke. Get on a microphone and say, I don't want to play along with you guys. Give me this backing track, and we will make that happen. And finally, if you're none of the above, just eat, because it is a picnic.
Eat, because we're going to have a barbecue.
And all of this only applies if you're in Southeast Michigan. But it's a good reason, even if you don't live in Michigan, to come to Michigan and be in Southeast Michigan September 3rd, the weekend of Labor Day, but on Saturday, and that way we don't steal your holiday away from you. And on this day in history, I'm going to jump right in because I know Amy's got a lot to say today. I have a lot to say today.
Yes.
It may be a challenge to keep it under 5 minutes. On this day in history, August 21st, Hawaii becomes the 50th state. So, shout out to our listeners in Hawaii. Congratulations on joining the Union 63 years ago today. Again, one of the reasons I bring up history is it amazes me how history wasn't that long ago. Hawaii becomes the 50th state in 1959, 4 years before I was born. Outrageous. The modern United States receives its crowning star when President Dwight D. Eisenhower signs a proclamation admitting Hawaii into the Union as the 50th state. Hawaii is located in the Pacific Ocean.
On volcanoes.
2,000 miles away from mainland U.S. It's also the only state that is an archipelago and the only state in the tropics.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Also on this date, 1897, so over 100 years ago, the Olds Motor Works was founded by Ransom Eli Olds. Ransom Eli, R-E-O. Ransom Eli Olds of Lansing, Michigan founds the Olds Motor Works, which would later become Oldsmobile. On this date, August 21st, 1897. Now, some claimed that the Oldsmobile was the first American car to be produced using progressive assembly line systems, and the first to become a commercial success. 1904, Olds left to found the REO. Remember his initials, Ransom Eli Olds. REO Motor Car Company.
Yes, and then he formed the band.
REO Speedwagon. No, he actually produced a utility vehicle called the REO Speedwagon. Hence the band name, shout out, Mark and Echo. Thinking about you guys and next weekend. So, yeah, according to historian Robert Dome, the implementation of mass production of automobiles via assembly line may be credited to Ransom Olds, who used it to build the first mass-produced automobile, the Oldsmobile Curved Dash. Olds patented his assembly line concept, which he put to work in the Olds Motor Vehicle Company factory in 1901. Now, at Ford Motor Company, the assembly line was introduced by William Pa Clan. I love William Pa Clan because, we think of Pop Harper. Yeah, I wonder if that nickname Pop Harper came from nicknames like William Pa Clan. Upon his return from visiting the Swifting Company slaughterhouse in Chicago.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Figure out how to build a car. Let's go to the slaughterhouse. No, he was checking out their factory, viewing what was referred to as the...
assembly.
Exactly. That's exactly right. He was viewing what was referred to as the disassembly line, where carcasses were butchered as they moved along a conveyor. The efficiency of one person removing the same piece over and over without himself moving caught Pa Clan's attention. He reported the idea to Peter Martin, soon to be head of Ford production, who was doubtful at the time, but encouraged him to proceed. Others at Ford have claimed the idea was put forth by Henry Ford, but Pa Clan's slaughterhouse revelation is well documented in the archives at the Henry Ford Museum and elsewhere, making him an important contributor to the modern automated assembly line concept. Henry Ford was appreciative, having visited the highly automated 40-acre Sears mail order handling facility around 1906. At Ford, the process was an evolution by trial and error. Charles E. Sorensen, in his 1956 memoir, My 40 Years with Ford, you've heard us mention Sorensen before, presented a different version of the development that was not so much about individual inventors as a gradual logical development of industrial engineering. This is what he wrote. I just find this interesting. What was worked out at Ford was the practice of moving the work from one worker to another until it became a complete unit, then arranging the flow of these units at the right time and at the right place to a moving final assembly line from which came a finished product. Regardless of the earlier uses of these principles, the direct line of succession of mass production and its intensification into automation stems directly from what we worked out at Ford Motor Company between 1908 and 1913. Henry Ford is generally regarded as the father of mass production. He was not. He was the sponsor of it.
Well, it wasn't just that, but it wasn't just mass production, the assembly line and all that applied to automobiles, but he created the Rouge plant facility, which provided all of the raw materials that he needed to make a car. So he didn't actually have to be dependent on any vendors at that point. So that's pretty fantastic.
So many innovations. Reason why he was one of the wealthiest men in the world in his heyday. The assembly line driven by conveyor belts reduced production time for a Model T to just 93 minutes by dividing the process into 45 steps. I love this last line, and I'm done with this last line. Producing cars quicker than the paint of the day could dry. It had an immense influence on the world. Love, love, love that. So yes, congratulations to the late Ransom Eli Olds, REO, opening the Olds Motor Works and eventually REO. Heard it from a friend who... Okay, least favorite REO Speedwagon song, which is why we can't resist. Also on this date, just a couple years later, 1911, August 21st, the theft of the Mona Lisa is discovered.
She walked out of there. She says, I'm not putting up with this anymore.
That's right. Y'all staring at me all day, every day. No modesty. No, this is funny because it was an amateur painter who set up his easel near Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa at the Louvre in Paris, only to discover that the masterpiece was missing. Can you imagine showing up there? I'm going to do some painting and be inspired by the Mona Lisa, and it's not there. Earlier in the day, and perhaps the most brazen art theft of all time, Vincenzo Peruggia had walked into the Louvre, removed the famed painting from the wall, hid it beneath his clothes, and escaped. While the entire nation of France was stunned, theories abounded as to what could have happened to the invaluable artwork. Investigators and detectives searched for the painting for more than 2 years without finding any decent leads. Then in November of 1913, Italian art dealer Alfredo Geri received a letter from a man calling himself Leonardo. It indicated that the Mona Lisa was in Florence and would be returned for a hefty ransom. When Peruggia attempted to receive the ransom, he was captured. The painting was unharmed.
Good. You know, it's not actually a big painting. We saw it in person at the Louvre.
Yes.
So,
incidentally, if you've read Inside the Criminal Mind, the wrap-up of the story here will not surprise you. Peruggia, a former employee of the Louvre, claimed he had acted out of a patriotic duty to avenge Italy on behalf of Napoleon. But
that makes sense.
Yeah. But prior robbery convictions and a diary with a list of art collectors led most to think that he had acted solely out of avarice. Peruggia served 7 months of a 1-year sentence and later served in the Italian army during the First World War. Well, sounds like he made out okay after all. The Mona Lisa is back in the Louvre, where improved security measures are now in place to protect it. Yes, when we were there a couple years ago, we did not try to steal the Mona Lisa. It seemed that it was well secured. Otherwise, we might have walked out with it. Also on this date, August 21st, now 9 years after that, Christopher Robin was born. So we move into the birthdays.
Yay,
yes, it's Christopher Robin's birthday. Now, Christopher, isn't that the kid from the story? Yes, it is. Excuse me, Daphne Milne, wife of writer A.A. Milne, gives birth to a son who the couple name Christopher Robin Milne on August 21st. Christopher Robin will be immortalized in A.A. Milne's books, Winnie the Pooh and The House at Pooh Corner. See, when Christopher Robin was about 1, he received a stuffed bear as a present. The child soon accumulated a collection of similar animals, which inspired Milne to begin writing a series of whimsical stories about the toys. Winnie the Pooh was published in 1926 in The House of Pooh Corner. 2 years later, in 1928, Ernest Shepard illustrated the books using Christopher Robin and his animals as models. A.A. Milne wrote numerous other books and plays. In fact, one of the adult stories, or stories for adults, came up recently on Facebook, and I learned a little more. But he is most always remembered for his beloved children's work. He died in 1956. Christopher Robin died in 1996, just, what is that?
What?
26 years ago.
How long did Eeyore live?
Eeyore will never die. Now, of course, everybody knows, because I think we've sung it on the show before, my favorite animated version is the original Disney version. The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
We should rewatch that.
We should.
It's so nice.
We should. And you got to watch out, because there's a newer version.
Oh.
The Mini Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I don't know why they chose to remake these stories.
Because they have no ideas.
Yeah, I was looking for the Rain, Rain, Rain Came Down, Down, Down.
In rushing, rising rivulets.
In rushing, rising. And it was strange because it didn't sound quite right. The music didn't sound quite the same. And then I heard the narration, and I'm like, that's not Sebastian Cabot. I recognize the voice. I look it up, and it's John Cleese.
Oh.
So they remade it with new voices. No idea why, but Winnie the Pooh will always be Sterling Holloway. So I recommend that you go out, and links are in the show notes, so that you go out and find the original. If you have the Disney Plus service, that is a very easy thing to do. Sorry, I've got to update. One of my chats isn't running, and I need the chat. I need to know what y'all are
Yeah, we've got
saying.
A lot of people on YouTube. Thank you for being here with us, everybody.
That's the best.
And some people just a few people on Facebook. Thank you so much. It's nice to have friends around when we're talking.
Yeah, Jim, the author, the writer, Ashley is pointing out, using measurement omission in all of its relevant aspects, one can see that the concept of the assembly line is the same for automobile factories, slaughterhouses, and many other industrial facilities. That's interesting because I did link to the Wikipedia article on the assembly line, which makes that point. The assembly line was not new at the time of automobile production, even in REO's day, but the application was new, and all sorts of innovations were made. Almost finally, on this date, Michael Phelps wins his 8th medal at the Athens Olympics. 8 medals. I think 6 gold and 2 bronze. 6 gold, 2 bronze. 2004. So less than 20 years ago. Why does that matter? Well, not only was he an amazing athlete, but the first single from Ron Toole and the Capitalists' album, True Tales of Dereliction, was about, well, it was kind of about, it mentions Michael Phelps. It's part of the story. It was funny to me, okay?
Well, take that title on its face.
Well, the title of the song is Throbbing Prawn. Now, you know what a prawn is. It's like a big shrimp.
Yes, yeah. Delicious. This was in the heyday of our punk folk rock crazy shenaniganous. Yep.
I didn't write the lyrics. I would not have been able to come up with these lyrics or such a story.
We played in small clubs and...
It's interesting to me because I thought that Ron Toole and the Capitalists' most viewed video was our EPK, our electronic press kit, and a song called What's That Goo? Turns out, no, Throbbing Prawn actually has more hits, and there's a link to that in the show notes. If you are curious to see, Robert and Amy were musicians, what were they doing 12 years ago? Well, you can find that out. A happy birthday also to Peter Weir, who is now 77 years old and retired, but he did direct the films The Year of Living Dangerously, The Truman Show, Master and Commander, great movie. But my favorite from his works has to be Dead Poets Society. What a film. And further proof that not every film needs a happy ending to work. Even though I think most of them do. Yes. Finally, happy birthdays also to Google co-founder Sergey Brin, born in 1973 in Moscow, not Moscow, Russia, Moscow, USSR. Born in the Soviet Union, he turns 49 years old today with a net worth of $96 billion.
Huh. Wow.
And also born today is Jamaican runner Usain Bolt, born in 1986, turns 36 today.
Nice.
Lastly, everybody's thinking, lastly, my God, thank God. Lastly, it is Internet Self-Care Day.
Yay!
Well,
what did I do for Internet Self-Care Day?
Did you use the internet in a way that fostered your your health and your
I usually do,
mental
actually.
stability?
I usually do, and I did actually. Let's see. Earlier today, I blocked somebody, and then I thought about unfriending another person, but I just didn't. I haven't yet because I just don't have the heart to right now. But yeah.
I never unfriend anybody. If you're friends with me on Facebook and you're one of those folks who's looks very carefully at, is this person friending the right kind of people? Has he friended any bad people? Please know in advance that I never unfriend anybody. So if I've got friends who are bad people, well, I've unfriended a few really, really bad people, but I've got a few that are. A few of people in my friends list are real ne'er-do-wells. And the reason they are there, well, there's multiple reasons, but the obvious reason is keep your friends close and your enemies closer. You got to be able to keep an eye on these people. There's a few people who went south that were friends of ours, and I just hold out hope, for them to come back into the fold.
Yeah.
So there are multiple reasons why you will occasionally see, and that happens because somebody posts something with your name on it and it highlights, and you're like, oh, that says this guy's friends with this guy. Why would he be friends with that guy? This other guy's terrible. So anyway, the point is, on Internet Self-Care Day, make sure your internet use is intentional. That's always the word I apply. Make sure you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And other than that, yeah, have at it. Although I did link to an article on Internet Self-Care, if that's an issue for anybody. Yes. Now, real quick, what are we listening to this week? All I've got for you this week are the 2 videos that I was in. I say I was in. What do you mean? Was it like you and Amy were in? Well, the Thursday video, Capitalism, Who Do You Work For? Written in Prince-style language, which means I should have written a Prince parody song to go with that episode, except the Prince estate is really careful about copyright, so it probably would have got a copyright strike. Capitalism, Who Do You Work For? Life on Earth with Robert and Amy Nasir, episode number 60. Pretty damn good if I do say so myself.
Yes,
But-
got to 60 episodes.
But it's the last episode that's going to say with Robert and Amy Nasir because, speaking of self-care
Well,
and
I had
intentionality,
to, yeah, intention. I was spreading myself way too thin, and I couldn't do it all. So
No.
I need to revive Great Lakes Subjectivists, and I need to work on this very podcast called 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir, which I'm hoping that you'll all see some changes coming very, very soon, because it's long overdue.
So yes, Amy has pulled back from the Ayn Rand Center UK activities that we have both been involved in. I will be continuing. You'll still see me on Thursdays going solo and on Fridays with James Valiant, but Amy's focused. Laser focused. That's the expression everybody uses now.
Laser beams.
But no, this will be
Around my
better than
eyes.
laser focused. This will be mentally focused. Yes.
yes.
No metaphors are necessary. This will be the good stuff. The Friday episode with James Valiant, which again I had to do solo, was called Do You Believe in Sex After Marriage? It's a controversial topic. I know, this idea that people would have sex after marriage, but some people actually
Especially for fun instead of procreation. Yeah.
do. Blasphemous. That was fun, but
Yeah, it's a great show, everybody. You should listen to it. I'm not on it, but it's great.
well,
I love it.
it relates to the self-care theme. It was interesting. Before we did that episode, James Valiant chose the questions. We already knew what the theme was. I came up with the humorous title, but before we did that episode, reviewing Leonard Peikoff's answers to several questions about sexuality, including controversial topics like pornography and masturbation and things that might make us lose our G rating on the Sunday show, I had a couple of posts that came up in the social media, Twitter first and then later on Facebook. I've got friends who are declaring how long they've been sober.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I've been sober for months. I can't remember the last time I had a drink. But I guess that could be interesting. But no. It turns out there are people who have a problem with alcohol. And they actually have to stop drinking. Well, we all have heard of that. Alcoholism or, addictions. Another friend posted, and I thought this was pretty bold. He posted,
it's pretty courageous.
I am giving up porn. And my first reaction was, I didn't even know you were in the business. But it turns out, he was finding he was spending too much time with pornography, and it was hard to pull away from it, so he's just giving it up.
Yep.
And I thought, well, that's cool.
That's pretty awesome.
So speaking of internet self-care, if you've got a habit that's become a habit, it's something you can't stop doing, and it's giving you some negative results, pull away. And I thought that was pretty cool. And it got me thinking about sacrifice and self-sacrifice, and how the worst self-sacrifices aren't the ones that you're forced into by the government. Oh my God. Do we, as people interested in philosophy, interested in politics, especially the objectivists in the audience, but all of you really, how much time do we spend on news stories about everything that's wrong? And we feel like the most harm in our lives comes from other people. The most harm that comes to us is the government, or crime, or big business, whatever. I've got a few more socialist-minded friends out there who would say, oh no, it's those billionaire CEOs. And that's such a disempowering idea, but it's also not true. The worst sacrifices I see, well, something Amy and I have been talking about, is the sacrifices people make by choice. We talk about altruism.
Or by kind of inertia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk about altruism as something that's imposed. And even if you do it voluntarily, it's imposed by your culture, so it's done out of guilt. But how much of self-sacrifice is just us not focusing on our values and not reaching out benevolently to people who can or should be of value to us?
Yes. Take that risk, take those chances, reach out to other people, find a new value, find something different to do, and
no risk, no reward.
Yeah.
So in regard to altruism, an ongoing theme of everything Robert and Amy Nasir, like from Great Lakes Objectivists and the GlowCon conferences to these podcasts and my posts and writings and Substack to events like the Rock and Roll Picnic and the other social events. Ongoing theme is benevolence. And also, you've heard me say this too many times, the theme of reclaiming or reframing woo. Finding the kernel of truth or the nugget of value in well-loved woo.
Yes.
Bringing it back to a more grounded, rational, enduring value.
Yes, as described in the 25th anniversary foreword of The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand.
That's right.
And how she talks about being, the word sacred, in other religious terms that need to be reclaimed in a secular way, in a rational way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So this latter bit of the idea of finding value in these mixed cases, or people who are a little confused about things but are passionate about them, mining for diamonds or gold, when most of what you unearth is dirt. This is part of focused living. This is part of living by intention. So benevolence and intentionality. And in this regard, and owing to a conversation I had with good friend and show supporter Paul, you know who you are because I see you in the chat there.
Yay!
I've decided I should reclaim a song.
Good.
I'm going to reclaim the song Give a Little Bit by Supertramp. Now, there's memes going around about song lyrics. Back in my day, we couldn't just look up song lyrics on the internet or our cell phones. And we had to carry those errors around until years later we were crushed by the truth. Excuse me while I kiss this guy. Well, when I was a youth, I thought the song Give a Little Bit of Your Love to Me, I thought it was a love song because it sang about giving a little bit of love. But then came Supertramp's follow-up album, Breakfast in America, with its cynical The Logical Song.
Oof. Yeah, that one creeps me the heck out.
It's creepy. And, and then add in the title track, Breakfast in America, which is even more cynical and takes a hearty swipe at America. And especially after growing up, I found this unforgivably nasty with regard to logic and reason and values.
Right.
And so when I put this charming song, Give a Little Bit, under the microscope, I found it wasn't a love song at all. It wasn't about romance, or not just romance, but about giving. It wasn't the logical song, it was the altruism song.
But,
well, I love the expression, first there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. Song by Donovan. Link in the show notes. God, I love that. First there is a mountain. You look, and this is Eastern philosophy, but it carries over well to the West. You look, you see a mountain, this majestic mountain out there. But then, as you gain wisdom, you learn, well, the mountain is actually just its constituent components. This piece of dirt and that piece of dirt, this rise and that rise. You can transcend it. You can climb it. You can conquer, even though it's a mountain, it's this impossible thing. You can conquer it. And as you gain more wisdom, you learn it's actually composed of like atoms and molecules, and it's mostly empty space. Or you learn that it doesn't last forever. You transcend the mountain. First there is a mountain, and then there is no mountain. And then, once you absorb that wisdom and integrate it, you step back and you realize that doesn't change the initial wisdom that I had, the initial perception that I had, the initial rational, logical, simple understanding that, oh yeah, look, a mountain. First there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. So, with that in mind...
I didn't hear what you said here. You're talking about integration, right?
No. You can't hone it down to one concept like that. Because what I'm talking about is understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Integration is absolutely a part of that, yes. But again, it's the fact that when you learn more and more about something, the concept can, what they say nowadays, the word they use is dissolve. You dissolve the concept. But with wisdom, you can step back and see the concept you initially saw, even though a deeper understanding may seem to have made the concept go away.
So in other words, you brought a richer context into the original concept.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that is it. That is it. And bigger and bolder, but also simple and innocent like it was at the beginning. You don't have to lose that. You know, there are people who say if you study music, you lose the magic of music. And that can actually happen. You hear a song and you find yourself analyzing it rather than actually listening to it. But what I've learned is that over time, you stop doing that. It's still there and you do a bit of it kind of in the background, but now you enjoy the music even more richly with that deeper understanding. Mm-hmm. So yes, first there is a mountain, then there is no mountain. So I'm starting once again to see the song give a little bit and to actually hear it as music again. You know, my version of the song, the way that it was a love song for me, and really it still is. Because there's real joy, there's real benevolence. If you know the song, it's not about self-sacrifice. It's not about self-destruction. It's about kindness and generosity, and it's about love. It is a love song.
Yes. So in the chat and on YouTube, Robin, you're cracking me up. He's bringing some zingers today.
All right, I got to check out the chat.
So Paul and I were talking about American breakfast, and I'm like, American breakfast equals, no mushrooms, no beans, and no black pudding. And then whence Robin made the correction, pudding of color.
Pudding of color. That's funny. Well, we went to England and we had a British breakfast.
Oh, it's great.
There were baked beans and black pudding and
mushrooms.
And they could tell. They could tell
tomatoes. I forgot that.
And tomato slices. And
yes.
I of course, then British people don't really eat that. They could tell we were Americans and they do that as a joke. They just put that out there for the stereotype, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Kidding.
Pudding of color.
Pudding of color.
Very considerate of you to say that. So, and then over in, I think I may be misinterpreting Jim's comment here. He said something that I thought was kind of funny, but I don't know if he's actually being funny or not.
Oh, any comment that opens, well, my problem with sex is rather unique. That can't be serious. Well, let's see. Maybe not.
Let's see.
I'm not trying to learn to enjoy sex without guilt, but to enjoy guilt without sex. I want good guilt. Damn it, I'm not getting any. Yeah, it's a real challenge to find good guilt out there because in a subjectivist society, anything goes. Now, we're laughing, but Jim will remember, he probably heard this episode, I've said I have a problem with the sex positivity movement. And it's not the positivity I have a problem with. It's not really the sex I have a problem with. It's their idea that, well, anything goes, anything's okay as long as nobody gets hurt. That's about as objective a standard as altruism uses for the good. But also, if nothing is pushing the limits, if nothing is, maybe that's too far, then nothing is kinky, nothing is exciting, nothing is beyond bounds, there's no lines to cross. So yes, I absolutely have sympathy, even though I'm sure he's joking, for this idea that, damn it, you just can't find any high quality guilt out there anymore.
So, and I say, a great problem to have.
A great problem. Oh, well, you have no sympathy, do you? Jeez, woman. Jim, I empathize.
He's like, oh yeah, sad face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you laugh. You watch. You get to that point where when everything is vanilla, no matter what you do, because, it's all good, man.
It's like, it's the same safe word.
You don't even need a safe word anymore because everything is safe. Man.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you put enough practice into that. You're an expert and everything's...
I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Just routine. But by that point...
It turns out there are some objective standards. Some things lead to... there are too many examples and too many of them are too intimate. But the obvious one is some things lead to levels of pain that... at some point you're going to say, wait, that's pushing boundaries. But there are 10 other ways that happens as well. We'll do another show on sexuality soon, just because. And why not? But where did I leave off here? Oh, of course. Because I'm reclaiming this song, which for a long time I've kind of thought of as the Altruism song. You know, because there was a song called The Logical Song that was about logic and was not kind to logic.
Yeah.
And it turns out most of even those kind of songs, what they're really criticizing is rationalism and repression. And unfortunately, their answer to it is not a very good one, and it comes across as, yeah, logic is bad.
Yeah.
But that's not really what they're saying.
They talk about this. I think there was a song by the Police with the line about the straitjacket of logic.
Yes.
Yeah, that straitjacket
Their
of
logic ties you up and rapes you.
Oh, right.
Do, dee, da, da. That's all I want to say to you. That's right. We're supposed to start a show off that way.
How,
da, 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 da. Do, dee, da, da.
We could be Alex Lifeson. Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah.
Blah, 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 blah.
If you haven't heard Alex Lifeson's speech before the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, when they finally, years and years and years after they should have been admitted, were finally brought into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Alex Lifeson gave them the acknowledgement that they deserved. And yes, his entire... Well, that's a bit of a spoiler, but it's worth seeing anyway, that his entire speech, which is, whatever it was, 8 or 12 minutes long, blah, 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 blah. It was pretty good.
It was great.
And sometimes you take a joke too far, and after a while it's not funny, and then it crosses over to being funny again. And that's one of those ones where you're like, okay, this is going on too long, but he pulls it off.
So before we get into our main content, which is about altruism and morality and different approaches to morality to make sure that you can understand what altruism really is and where to put it. So, before we get into that, I just want to say thank you all for joining us today. If you want to become a Patreon member, you can go to, what is the URL again?
You're doing a mid-show promo.
I am.
Like we do with the Ayn Rand Center UK. Yes. That's right. If you're enjoying this content, you should be a member. Well, we don't have memberships. We have patronages. Yes. So you go to robertnasir.com and click Patreon and become a patron. We have patrons. Some of you out there are already doing this. My heart goes out to you. You are the best people in the world. If you want to be one of the best people in the world, robertnasir.com. Or you can go directly. It's patreon.com/robertnasir. Or for one-time contributions, paypal.com/robertnasir.
Very nice.
Yes. Everybody remembers the Todd Rundgren album, Something Anything, where he says, throw money. I'm changing the name of the album to Throw Money. Well, we're changing the name of the show.
To throw money.
To throw money. It's Sunday at 6 o'clock, and this is Throw Money. I like that idea. I did not expect you to throw up. I don't know. Maybe we'll start doing that. I don't know.
Well, Jennifer's in the chat. You can suggest that to Yaron. He can change the title of his show.
Well, that's true. I always cringe at asking for money, but if you listen to the Yaron Brooks show...
He's good at it. I admire and applaud his efforts.
It's funny because he says, I know I ask for money too much. I'm not going to do it anymore. And then within a week or two, he's back to asking 14 times every show. And he's so good at what he does, he can get away with it. He really is the best.
Paul in the chat says... when we do our do-do-do-da-da-da show and blah-blah-blah show, he can say, for the translation, send checks to...
Oh, I like that. Yes, if you want to know what all that really meant. Yeah, we can keep the price nice and low as long as everybody sends money. But back to the show.
All right, back to our main content.
I know you are
we have
all
a lot to
in
talk
your
about.
checkbook scratching out a check to the show there. See, what I'm trying to figure out is the best way to understand effective altruism. Now, I've mentioned this before. The effective altruists, who are big, this is a massive movement. If altruism exists in the world, these are the folks who are keeping it going because they're trying to make it practical. They're trying to figure out the best way to give. And not give till it hurts, because if it hurts, you stop giving. No. They want it to be practical. They want practical altruism. They want effective altruism. That's why it's called it's the weirdest thing, because altruism isn't a moral system.
No, it's not.
It's not a moral code.
It's not even effective.
It's hardly even a concept.
It's only saying yes, you should give to others. It just completely out of context. Like, oh,
And
what?
And what should you give to others?
Yeah.
Like the standard is that the good is what's good for others, but what's good for others? I mean, maybe food, shelter,
is it
stuff.
having anything to do with what's good for you? And should you answer those questions?
Yeah, you could go full Immanuel Kant and say, well, the good is the not good for me. But again, why? If we haven't defined what the good means, we most certainly haven't defined the not good for me. See, if you don't hold a specific, explicit moral code, like the average Joe, if you haven't determined consciously in words what your values are and what virtues lead to those values, it can all seem floating, in which case, well, the good is what's good for others might sound as good as it gets. But if goodness is to take the virtuous actions which lead to the achievement of the values which human life requires, that is, if the good is to exercise rationality, honesty, integrity, productivity, independence, justice, and pride, to attain both the physical requirements of life and the fundamental values of life, reason, purpose, and self-esteem, which are the preconditions of all other values. If that's the good, well, then morality, ethics, means something real, grounded, achievable, attainable. Amy and I have recently watched a few episodes of the recent Netflix show Sandman. Sandman.
I call him Sad Man.
Sad Man. Really? You think of the old song, Mr. Sandman? It was so cheerful. Bring me a dream.
Dun, 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 dun.
No, this is not happy. It's so dark. It's based on a long-running Neil Gaiman comic. The thing about stories with supernaturalism, fantasy and magic, or time travel, like Paper Girls that we just finished watching.
Which is really good, by the way. Thank you to John. I don't know if you're listening ever, but thank you for that recommendation.
It's a bit mixed, but it has its moments.
It's fun.
It has its virtues.
Yeah.
But the thing about time travel stories is they don't make any sense. We all know about paradox, but it goes beyond that. There's no way to make those stories make sense unless, and this is true in Sandman and any kind of magic, supernaturalism, Twilight, any Harry Potter. If there are elements that are just not metaphysically possible, the stories don't make any sense unless you don't look at them too closely. It's challenging to watch unless the writers do a good job prepping the stage by setting ground rules for what can and can't happen. The way to make a time travel story work, the way to make a magic story, a Sandman type story work, is you set ground rules. And they're arbitrary, they have to be, but you set them, you put them out there so that you can say, well, this can happen, this can't happen, and you can make a backstory saying why, but that's irrelevant. What you need are some kind of ground rules. And life itself, and real life, has ground rules too. And if the characters don't follow the ground rules, two things happen. The characters don't achieve success, and the story doesn't make any sense. Wait, are we talking about real life or stories? If you don't follow the ground rules, two things happen. You don't achieve success, and the story doesn't make any sense. I love the line by Richard Bach, hedonism is no fun. I mean, how can that be? Hedonism means pursuing fun all the time. And the answer is because successful action means value pursuit, which then leads to happiness and pleasure. But reversing cause and effect means starting with pleasure, ignoring all the hard work and long-range thinking, and often unpleasant, non-pleasurable actions, which are necessary to achieve the values that a happy, successful life requires. Now, if this doesn't work in the personal sphere, and I think of friends who are giving up alcohol or pornography, then it certainly doesn't work in the sphere of giving, of altruism. If it feels good, do it, is no way to live. And neither is, if it makes others feel good, do it. Add to this the fact that a forced value isn't a value at all. Second-hand values are second best, at best. At second worst, they're like unwanted Christmas presents, embarrassing to accept, embarrassing to discard. At absolute worst, they're like public school or prison work, assignments forced on you for your own good. I don't want the gifts of altruism. I don't want what other people think I need or should have. I don't want to be forced to give other people what a third party thinks they should have. I like benevolence. I like generosity.
I like choice.
I admire magnanimity.
Yeah.
What did I say? I said last week, one reason I encourage prosperity, abundance, wealth, as well as increasing your own financial intelligence.
Yeah, and hospitality is another thing I like.
One reason I like that is it's fun. It's fun to share with people you value, people you like, and causes that you support. It's fun. It's just. And it reinforces your own self-confidence to be able to support those who, through no fault of their own, are facing challenges. And altruism, duty, just sucks all the fun out of this, all the value.
Yeah. And it's a shell of a fraction of a moral code. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's like a little shard of glass out of a moral code.
It's a splinter of a moral code. It's a splinter of moral code. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I had written that, in terms of, trying to reclaim this idea of benevolence, of generosity, of hospitality, of welcoming, of being friendly towards each other, especially people who you like. That you share the same values, share the same philosophical values, for instance. Hint, hint. That kind of, those sorts of actions, consideration, hospitality, benevolence, all of that, it's an extension of justice. It's the first duty of justice, according to Dr. Peikoff, as praising and defending the good, acknowledging the good is what you do. And I'd say you don't just defend and praise them, you welcome them. And if the if situation is appropriate and you're in a social setting or whatever, like Great Lakes Objectivists dinner parties, which hopefully I will be resurfacing soon, it's an extension of justice to invite your good people over who are like-minded and good to each other and polite and respectful of each other and admiring of each other. It's a wonderful thing. When I think of, Robert, you and I had this conversation, I don't know, yesterday or today. So I brought up the idea of the term helpful, being helpful. This is something that is oftentimes, if you are new to objectivism and you feel this pain of people trying to guilt you into doing things, trying to make you feel bad about yourself because you're not doing their bidding, and then they call you selfish and all of this, and you're going through all of that, which is really difficult to go through and to process and to reintegrate and to reframe. And then you've got to think to yourself, my gosh, being selfish is really difficult to do. I need to focus on what I value, and that's going to take a lot of work. But I think that once you evolve through that process, once you figure that out, and you then start to say, hey, wait a minute, I need to reclaim friendship. I need to reclaim being helpful to those people who I like and love. And that is something that I think that in objectivism in particular, I think that's something that we need to start looking at more, and we need to embrace it. Because I'll tell you, I mean, I told friends this way back when, but whenever I have my dinner parties, philosophical dinner parties, which is what I call them, for Great Lakes Objectivists, it was such a welcoming and warm atmosphere for people to talk philosophy in. So there wasn't, any soapboxing or anybody, arguing or pointing fingers in each other's faces. It wasn't like that. It was, everybody was respectful and kind and patient with each other. And it was just a wonderful thing. So yeah, I think, I think we definitely need to kind of reframe this idea of being helpful. And, and I thought a little bit about it more, and I said, I thought, Ayn Rand's philosophy has helped people, and she would say, well, that's a secondary kind of, situation that's caused by her main achievement of actually being selfish and doing the things she wanted to do and pursuing her values. But Ayn Rand's philosophy has helped people. And I know she received a tremendous spiritual value from many whom she helped. And, the idea of spiritual values, we'll talk about that more in another episode. But, that's often the time when people say to tell you, well, I have a great feeling. I have a feeling of I feel good about myself when I help other people. It's not the giving necessarily that's making you happy. It's the fact that you're receiving a spiritual value because either the person is understanding what you're saying, or they're appreciative of what you're saying, or that you can actually see them grow and become a better person because of what the advice that you gave them, for instance. And that is spiritually rewarding, to have people that you like actually benefit from your presence, from your advice, from your mind, from the products of your mind. And so... yeah.
It's funny you mention Ayn Rand because I read Ayn Rand and she addresses everything that's wrong with the world so brilliantly. It doesn't always stand out that she also addresses virtue.
Yes.
She addresses the good. She addresses the exemplary. Think of John Galt's speech, the symbol of all relationships among rational men. The moral symbol of respect for human beings is the traitor.
Mm-hmm.
And within this paragraph, he says, just as he does not give his work, except in trade for material values, so he does not give the values of his spirit, his love, his friendship, his esteem, except in payment, and in trade for human virtues, in payment for his own selfish pleasure, which he receives from men he can respect. Now, I've heard the audiobook version of this story, and hearing those lines spoken but in anger, it delivers an entirely different message. And you've got to be willing to actually read what's there, and not because it's surrounded by, of course, she's fighting the bad ideas and the traditions of thousands of years here. So it's easy to bulldoze through these positive passages here from the Objectivist Ethics. In spiritual issues, by spiritual I mean pertaining to man's consciousness, the currency or medium of exchange is different, but the principle is the same. Love, friendship, respect, admiration are the emotional response of one man to the virtues of another. The spiritual payment given in exchange for the personal, selfish pleasure which one man derives from the virtues of another man's character.
Yes.
Now, if you read that, but you're already engaged in the fight, in the culture war or the political war, or your own challenges, trying to get altruism out of your system, you read that along with the mystic parasites who have throughout the ages reviled the traitors and held them in contempt, while honoring the beggars and the looters, have known the secret motive of their sneers. The traitor is the entity they dread, a man of justice. Now, those are important words, and that had to be said. But the challenge is to also hold on to the positive and not just focus on what needs to be fought. My rule, 97.3. 97% of your focus should be on just as he does not give his work except in trade for material values, so he does not give the values of his spirit, his love, his friendship, his esteem, except in payment and in trade for human virtues, in payment for his own selfish pleasure, which he receives from men he can respect.
Yes. And Apollo and I were having a little discussion in the chat on YouTube, and I mentioned that money is a spiritual value.
Well, that's true, because money is simply what you exchange for the work, and that means primarily the thought and action that you do. So yes, absolutely. It's
your effort and your creativity frozen in time.
Yes.
To be given, as currency to causes and people and companies that you like, that you find of value to you, and it's wonderful.
Yes, one of my favorite episodes of Life on Earth, when Amy was still on the show, Pollyanna in the paperless office. I quoted Pollyanna. There's a line in the story. In the story, it's attributed to Abraham Lincoln, but nobody's really been able to pin that down. It looks like it's just part of the story. And the line is this: when you look for the bad, expecting it, you will get it. When you know you will find the good, you will get that. And the great thing about Ayn Rand's writing is you can mine it for both. And it's not bad writing, and she's not saying anything bad. The point is the emphasis on what needs to be fought versus what needs to be celebrated.
Yeah, and also some of my thinking was around, that I came up recently with, is, when I think about all this, I question a lot of things. I've been in objectivism for forever, for the end of time.
Thinking firsthand?
Yeah, I'm thinking firsthandly. So,
sounds like hard work.
Even though I know that Ayn Rand, I completely agree with her on everything. Everything in her philosophy, and it's been so helpful and beneficial to me. I always question it, or I try to kind of look at it a different perspective, or I try to rephrase it in my own words. And oh, by the way, guys, we're going to be going over a little bit tonight. I just wanted to give you a little warning there, but because we have to get through this. But I asked myself, why, as me, Amy Nasir, as an objectivist, what is my motivation for communicating these ideas to you all, to anybody who is watching over at ARC UK, to wherever, to my Great Lakes Objectivist group? Why am I doing this in the first place? Is it to to make sure that that we are expressing these ideas, and then they are not wrong, and that they have a definition, and they're and that we must correct people, like giving them a punishment, because of their irrational thinking, and we must put out these fires, No, actually, I find that I am very rewarded seeing people understand what I'm saying. And so my motivation is to help myself and others by simultaneously being a teacher and a student in that way. And that it's not only a gift when you give, when people get what you're saying, when they understand what you're saying, it's a gift to you when you see them getting it. And so I kept thinking to myself, you know what, I need to be more open to these spiritual gifts around me. And these spiritual gifts, these spiritual values, these emotional values, this emotional fuel, you can see all around you anytime you want to look, anywhere around you, from the cars that are driving by outside, because those are people who actually have a job, and those are people who actually trade with others, and that somehow connects to you and how you trade in your business, and the paycheck that you get, and all these values that are produced through that. So it's all very interconnected. These spiritual values that you can actually, you can identify, you can define, you can make it real to people. And this is something that objectivism offers that no other moral code even comes close to doing. And it's I think of Ayn Rand's morality, and I think of it's a full morality. It basically gives you all the different perspectives of what rationality means and how to practice rationality and how to practice respecting your own mind, and respecting reality, and understanding that you have this power, this consciousness that actually can grasp what's real. And it's really fantastic. It's really empowering. And so when before we did the show tonight, I thought, the question is, what is altruism? What's missing in altruism? What's missing in the conventional morality nowadays? I went to YouTube and I put in, why is it important to be honest? You're not going to get the answers that Ayn Rand provided. Just in a single paragraph. It's a long paragraph, but it's a single paragraph in Galt's speech in Atlas Shrugged. And what I've done is I have parsed out and put into my own words what that passage is about honesty, the virtue of honesty, and what it really means. And this is an exercise I think that we should all be doing, that who are familiar with Ayn Rand. Go into her books, go into a definition of hers, parse it out, and ask yourself, what does she really mean by this, and how do these concepts relate to these other things, and how does this apply to my life, which is the most important question. Are we doing okay on the chat? Anybody have any questions or anything?
I'm just keeping one eye.
Okay.
Gave a couple answers here, but mostly I'm just loving what I'm seeing.
Great. Well, okay, so it starts in Galt's speech. This is the portion that she describes what honesty is. And I chose honesty because it's something I think everyone's familiar with. But nowhere in any religion or any other moral code does it really go in depth what honesty really is. She says, honesty is the recognition of the fact that the unreal is unreal and can have no value. All right, full stop. And here's my kind of chewing on this line of hers. Here she is tying honesty to our mind's ability to perceive things in reality as being real or unreal, and how this relates to values, and the fact that if something doesn't exist in reality, it cannot be a value. All right, so I can understand that. That's so the next line is that neither love nor fame nor cash is a value if obtained by fraud. Okay, so she's giving examples that people are often dishonest about getting, love, cash, fame, all that, and mentioning that fraud is a method of dishonesty. Okay, so that's helpful. I'm going to keep using that word, helpful. All of these ideas are helpful. That an attempt to gain a value by deceiving the mind of others is an act of raising your victims to a position higher than reality. Now that's actually, those are some concepts that deserve a little bit more explanation. So I wrote, showing that when you try to deceive another person, you short circuit your mind's ability to perceive reality by having to make an exception in your reasoning. The context of the lie and the victim you lie to are now outside of your ability to reason, in a position higher or outside of reality. And your lie and your person are now at the mercy of your victim finding you out. This constant remembering not to reveal the lie will disintegrate your thought process and lead you to feeling fear and anxiety. That's my interpretation of what she's saying there. A lot of words, because she's such a great writer and she's so great in her brevity. Okay. Next one is where you become a pawn of their blindness. And that's, you must now change your actions and double down on the lie, having to make up more lies in order to keep your victim in the dark. So you're a pawn. And you're a slave of their non-thinking and their evasions. So you are now having to rely on their ignorance or lying to themselves. In this sense, the lie multiplies and carries over to other people who are now pawns in the deception. God, what a mess. know, but very helpful to know how these, how a lie, how an evasion cascades causally throughout a person's consciousness and how that affects other people around them. Okay, so next one is, while their intelligence, your victim's intelligence, their rationality, their perceptiveness becomes the enemies you have to dread and flee. So, you are in constant fear that your victim will think, use reason, and be open to finding the truth. So, you've severed the connection. So, not only have you severed the connection of your own consciousness to reality and your ability to reason, now your only hope is that this willingness to evade exists in your victim's mind. So all you have is hope that they will evade or they will overlook your lie or will not come after you or not wanting to try to find the truth. That you do not care to live, and this back to Ayn Rand, that you do not care to live as a dependent, least of all a dependent on the stupidity of others, or as a fool whose source of values is the fools he succeeds in fooling. So now you are dependent on your victim's evasion from reality, and you've damaged your own virtue of independence. And her last line is that honesty is not a social duty, not a sacrifice for the sake of others, but the most profoundly selfish virtue man can practice. His refusal to sacrifice the reality of his own existence to the deluded consciousness of others. And I won't even say after that. I'm not even gonna. This just speaks for itself. So you go through this, the virtue of honesty, and you think, God dang, yeah, no, I really need to be honest with myself and other people, and if I lie, if I tell a falsehood, it's going to get me in major trouble. And because these are the consequences of it, it cascades down into the worst kind of evil evasion, and then it ends, and all you get is fear and anxiety in return. Yeah. So it's it's a very helpful explanation of honesty from Ayn Rand.
Well, obviously I agree with that. Absolutely. Love is not self-sacrifice. I mentioned this when we went to a wedding recently. And I said, if I was going to give a wedding speech, I would say, love her as I have loved her, and there will be joy. Oh, no, wait, that's Princess Bride.
No.
What I would really say is that love is not quote-unquote selfish. I wouldn't say quote-unquote. Most people would take this the right way. Love isn't selfish, and it isn't selfless. A successful marriage certainly isn't selfless. See, when good people say that love needs to be selfless, they don't really mean it. What they mean, if they mean anything at all, is that love needs you to see beyond whims, wishes, beyond the petty and the range of the moment, to open your loving eyes a little bit wider. See, love needs to be, you need to be big, full context, broad, big picture. Love is not self-sacrifice. If what you want in a romance is not a self-abasing nebbish, but a passionate, assertive, efficacious partner, in fact, that's what you want in all relationships. Because if love is not self-sacrifice, then neither is benevolence, generosity, friendship, charity, hospitality, graciousness. So give a little bit, give a lot, if you choose to, if you value someone, if it's a pleasure to do so, if you know of your own best judgment that it is not self-sacrifice.
Yes. You know what? And be open to it. Be vulnerable. Go out there and make good friends. Have them over for dinner. Go to the movies with them. share experiences with people that, to the best of your knowledge and to the best of your enjoyment, you like and you trust. And, yeah.
Philosophy tells you to live rationally. I will add on, live large. Be big. Be bold. Your heart should be massive. You should be passionate. If anybody should be passionate, you should be passionate. My Post-it note for the week says, well, what if you gave it everything you've got? Because there are so many things we do, so many things, I shouldn't say we. I'm not going to speak for you. You decide if this applies. There's so many things we do that don't take a lot. When I go to do the laundry, I don't think, what if I gave this everything I've got? But the funny thing is, well, it's on a timer, so there's only so much impact you can have.
Right.
And you think, well, I'm not going to do the laundry with everything I've got. The washer takes 30 minutes, the dryer takes 45, and those aren't going to change even if that little bit in between, the 10, 15 minutes it takes to load or unload or hang or fold, even if I gave that everything I've got, it's not going to make much difference. So I shouldn't waste my energy on that. What's wrong with that kind of thinking is that your energy isn't finite. Your willpower is. But your energy builds. If you've ever worked out. If you've been on any kind of exercise routine. Or just if you've had your eyes open and been alive, that when you do something that requires a lot of energy, it often gives you more energy. If you were to take everything you've got and apply it to the laundry, then when you walk away from your laundry, you will be in a frame of mind, in a mindset, and an energy state, a physical state of giving it all you've got. And whatever it is you go to next, whether that's making breakfast or kissing your bride, you will give that everything you've got. So at least for me personally, as somebody who I actually do laundry and things like that, that's gotten too easy. I need to ask myself, at least every now and then, like maybe on a Post-it note that I would leave, where I would see it a few times this week, what if I gave it everything I've got? So you're welcome to join me on that little adventure for this week. My Post-it note for the week says, what if you gave it everything you've got? One more thing before I wrap. Oh, my homework for the week, by the way, is a continuation. I am still planning for the retirement party the next weekend and the big 6th annual rock and roll picnic the weekend after that. Again, if you're going to be in Southeast Michigan, track me down, talk to me. If you haven't already, find me. I'm all over the internet. I'm the easiest person in the world to find. But one more thing. I've asked you before to like and share the show, subscribe. We're trying to get our subscriber numbers up. All of that is still true. If there's anybody you can share this with who you think would have even a crumb, a molecule, a kernel of interest in it, please send them our show. This show, if I do say so myself, and I do, this show should be listened to on the podcasting systems or watched on YouTube and Facebook by many, many more people than it is.
Yes.
You good people are listening right now, so you know. Okay, sometimes it's better than others, but it's pretty damn good, especially compared to some of the stuff out there. But that's not what I'm asking for this week. This week, I am asking you, if you haven't already, to watch an episode of Peak Off Fridays called The Analytic-Synthetic Dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of you will know what that is. It's an essay by the philosopher Leonard Peikoff, in which he discusses the distinction, an artificial distinction, but nonetheless a common, what every philosophy professor other than the objectivists believe, that there is a difference between logical truths and empirical truths, or analytic truths and subjective truths, analytic and synthetic truths. That there are two different kinds of knowledge, and never the twain shall meet. That essay blows that away.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds abstract and philosophical, but believe me, the whole thing is grounded in examples along the way, including, for example, book smarts versus street smarts, theory versus practice. It's a good episode. The reason I mention it God, we're running so long. But real quick, the reason I mention it is, of all of the Peek Off Friday episodes, the episodes in which Amy and I have worked with James Stevens Valiant, brilliant guy, and all-around good guy, too.
Yes.
On Leonard Peikoff's writings, this is the one that has gotten the most views. But it's still under 1,000, and more than 1,000 people should watch this. It surprised me that it's gotten the most views because it's philosophy. It sounded kind of abstract. Yeah. Until I knew what it was, I would have thought, oh yeah, that sounds really technical. But no, it's gotten the most views of any other episode we've done. I want it over 1,000. I want it up there. And it's the coolest thing because I posted about this on Facebook last night. I said, hey, if you haven't seen this yet, watch it because I want to get it over 1,000. And by late this morning, there were already 25 more views on there than there were before. But 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir audience, you folks could do it. You could tip it. You could make it happen over 1,000 views if you can, if you would. Please. Link is in the show notes, already posted to the description on YouTube.
Yes.
And you can do a search for it too, but it's already there. Post that link to the analytic synthetic dichotomy. There it is.
And I have one last thing to say. If you want rational philosophy, if you want objectivism to win, nourish and help your objectivist friends and those who have active minds. So,
nourish.
Help us.
Not just help them complain about everything that sucks.
Help you to help us to help you. You see what I'm saying, right?
Help. Can we also help to help to help to help?
Yes, we can like do like a whole tennis match of spiritual values.
If it wasn't obvious over the course of this overlong discussion, one of the things Amy and I have been talking about is, some of us are falling back into negativity and focusing on everything that's wrong in the world. And we need to spend a little time doing that because there are things wrong in the world, but where is the love? Where are the values? Where are the virtues? Where is the positivity? Where is people talking to each other about, and this is what the good stuff looks like? So, yeah, that's been on our minds.
Yes.
We'll find a way to distill that down and talk about it in less than 5 minutes, but thank you so much for those of you who have stuck around today. And I see from the chat a few of you have. That staying power, I really appreciate that. I admire your virility in listening.
Your stick-to-itiveness.
But with that said, show notes are posted in the description on YouTube right now. You could have been reading them all this time. I will also add them to the Facebook version of the feed right after the show. If you have recommendations for future episodes of 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir, you know what to do. Go to the 5 Minutes Facebook group, write them down, or put them in the chat here. We will read them. We will write them down. I know sometimes it seems like you suggest something, it didn't happen, but if you watch over the course of time, things are getting a little better all the time, just like that Beatles song says. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that. As Amy mentioned in the middle of the show, and I guess it can't be said too many times, at least according to Yar and Brooke, if you want to support what we do here, throw money. No, seriously, become a patron of the show. Very much appreciated to those of you who already are. Patreon.com/Robert Nasir, or just go to robertnasir.com. You'll find the links for Patreon or one-time PayPal contributions. And finally, with that said, I personally, Amy, I'm sure too, we both want everybody in the audience, the large audience out there, everybody in the world wants to wish you success and flourishing. Some of them don't even know it, but they do. No, seriously, we wish you every success that you have earned. Big shout out to Emily, especially. Mm-hmm. You deserve, I'm saying this to her because we all should know this, but some of us don't. On some days we don't feel it. You deserve success. You deserve happiness. Unless you're a total rotter, and there just aren't any total rotters out there. The few there are, we know about them. You are a good person. You deserve every happiness. Maybe you could do better. I know I could do better. Maybe we could be happier, but don't sell yourself short. You are the star of this film. You're the director. You are the script writer, and you deserve every success. And that's why, as always, we wish you love.
Mwah.